Alright, hello everybody, welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be playing some Minecraft. More specifically, I'm going to be building my house. So, I kind of have a vision of what I'm going for, but I don't know how it's going to look because I'm kind of freeballing it. I don't really have like a plan. I just like have an idea of what I want in my head. If you have any recommendations or anything, just let me know in the comments and I'll see if I can add it into my build. But along with this, we're going to be reading some more true scary Reddit stories for this video. Here is the first story. Terrorized for 2 hours. This happened when I was in college. I lived in Isla Vista, the student community at UCSB. It's notorious for being a party school and it fully lived up to its reputation. I like to party, but holy shit, the people are off the wall. As such, there are a lot of people who put themselves in dangerous situations, drinking to excess, not being careful, not locking doors, etc. It had kind of an isolated vibe, and anyone who wasn't a college-aged person hanging around immediately looked out of place and strange. One night after a few drinks, I came home to my small house where I live with two other girls, probably around 2:30 a.m. We were all serious students. I was probably the least serious actually, and when we partied, it was not your typical USCB mega rager, more like a small get-together with friends. We would often have a few people spend the night, sleep on our furniture, ourselves in our own beds, as the case may be. That night, my roommates had a few people over who I didn't know, and I saw that when I returned that one of them had opted to sleep on the couch from the shadow that I saw there. I didn't turn on the light because I didn't want to wake anyone up, but as I was passing the couch to enter my bedroom, I noticed the figure was lying very stiff. He just had this weird energy to him. He was lying down, but it was like he was putting all of his energy into lying as still and rigid as possible. I paused and the guy quickly jerked his head to face me, without moving his limbs, so quickly that it startled me. I could see his wide open eyes glinting in the dark. Figuring that I had startled him, or that he was drunk, or maybe some kind of stimulant and he was unable to sleep, I just hurried past into my bedroom and locked the door. This dude made me very nervous and I wasn't taking any chances. I fell asleep pretty shortly after. At around 4:30 a.m. I woke up. There was a strange sound at the door, almost like somebody was drumming their fingers against the wood very quietly. I lay still and listened. There were more quiet sounds, like someone scratching the door with their fingers, which got louder and louder, until it was very clear that he was using both hands and scratching as fast and as hard as possible. It created an extremely loud and intimidating sound that filled me with fear. I got out my cell phone and texted my roommate because I was afraid to make a sound. Your friend is freaking me out. Is he coked out? Can you talk to him? He's banging and scratching on my door. She didn't text me back because she was probably asleep. I texted my other roommate to the same effect, covering all my bases. Keep in mind that the scratching has been going on for a couple of minutes at this point. I have no idea how you could have sustained it. Scratching a wooden door with your fingernails can't feel good. He also grabbed at the knob and jiggled it super forcefully. Because neither of them answered, I decided to call and really wake them up, though I was scared to make a sound. I know it sounds stupid, but there is something seriously horrifying about being teased like this through the door. I knew that he was trying to terrify me. I felt like a little kid, but I could tell this guy was fucked up or something, and maybe the police needed to be called. I wanted to loop my roommates in since it was one of their friends. The scratching stopped abruptly and I called my roommate, who answered sleepily. Yo, your friend is messed up. Can you please deal with it? Do we need to call the cops? He is seriously scaring me and he's scratching at my bedroom door. He's really weird. She didn't say anything for several seconds and didn't even speak. Her voice had no sleepiness in it at all. What friend? She said. That fucking guy sleeping on the couch, I said. She was quiet again. We didn't have any guys over, she said. Call the police. My adrenaline surged and I told her to please lock the bedroom door as quickly as possible. I realized that I hadn't heard scratching in a while and I had no clue where this dude had gone. Suddenly I hear a loud bang at the other end of the house, where my roommates, Lauren and Monica, shared a bedroom. The bangs were followed by the sound of them screaming in fear. I quickly dialed the police as the maniac proceeded to bang against the luckily locked bedroom door of my two roommates as they screamed. The heaviness of the blows left no doubt that he was trying to break the door down. I told the 911 operator the situation and she dispatched two squad cars. The police in Isla Vista were generally used to peeling drunks off the sidewalk and breaking up brawling frat bros. This was really serious and strange, and I think the dispatcher got the sense from how my tone was and how terrified I was, and she stayed on the phone with me. At one point, the banging stopped and everything was quiet for a while. I talked with the dispatcher, and the floor was kind of waggling them around. Suddenly, I looked down to see that this guy had slipped his fingers around the 1 inch gap between my door and the floor and was just kind of waggling them around, making this weird growling sound. I screamed and backed away, which is my biggest regret in this situation, as when I look back, it would have been so awesome to just stomp those fingers and hear the guy howl in pain. When the cops rolled up, I heard running and the sound of our sliding glass door opening and closing, and then he was gone. The cops never caught him. He had broken in through our side door by jimming the lock somehow. My door was covered in what turned out to be huge gouges he had made using a pair of scissors, which he discarded on the ground before he left. What terrifies me the most was that I walked right past him. I looked him right in the face. I realize now that he was not trying to sleep or on drugs, but he was lying so stiff that because he was hiding. He probably heard me open the door and freaked out because he didn't realize there was another girl living there. He tried to blend into the couch in the darkness. This story does not have a title. A few years back, I rented an apartment from a friend of mine. He had recently bought it and he had completely renovated it. He put it up for sale, but he couldn't find a buyer, so I offered to rent in the meantime. After moving in, I realized there was something wrong with the lady next door. She was about 45 but looked much older. She would sit up all night listening to Christian radio shows and talking loudly to someone. It got to the point to where I couldn't sleep, so I went over to a place and I asked her to keep it down. She opened her door and I got a quick peek. Her walls all had crosses painted on them in different colors and words like Jesus and angels scribbled everywhere. The windows were painted black, letting no light in at all. It was a damp, yellow-stained 50-year-old carpet, and there was dog shit and cockroaches everywhere. There was no dog though. I asked her to please keep it down. She just looked at me and shut the door, and then she turned up the radio even louder. Next night I had my girlfriend staying over. I woke up in the middle of the night and I saw a shadow of a person next to the bed looking at us sleeping. I think I'm hallucinating as I usually do in the dark when I'm sleepy, but then the shadow starts talking. It's my neighbor, and she's holding something in her hand. She broke in during the night, and who knows how long she stood there. You should lock your doors at night, she says, and then she walks out. The next morning, I saw someone making strange noises below my bedroom window. It was my neighbor talking to herself in tongue. She has a plastic bag in her hand and a rotting dead dog inside. It was hot as hell outside, and I could smell the death from the bag. At this point, I'm scared shitless. She's obviously very insane. I went upstairs and I knock on another person's door and ask what is going on. This guy is as scared as me. Apparently she broke into his apartment one evening as well while I was watching TV with his kids. He got up from the couch to get a snack, only to find her behind the couch staring at him holding a power drill. At this stage, I was basically pooping myself. I called the cops and they know all about her. Apparently she's a violent schizo and hasn't taken her meds, but they can't force her to or enter her apartment without her permission because she owns it. The only thing they can do is get her when she goes outside. I stood up for the next 2 days waiting for her to run out of cigarettes. When I heard her leave at 2 a.m. to go across the road to the 7-Eleven, I called the cops. They have 3 cars and a special van over in less than 2 minutes. They restrain her and throw her in her van and drive her off to some institution in less than a minute, like she was never even there. I never saw her again, but I still have nightmares about her looking at me in her sleep. There's an edit to this story too. Edit, this blew up. Some are wondering why breaking in was not enough to arrest her. The police said that there was no sign of break-in and she didn't steal anything, so there's not much to go on. And yes, this is probably the craziest thing I've experienced, and actually I've told this story before. The man in the yellow raincoat. So this is a story that happened to my mom's friend in Korea about 10 years ago. Every time I hear this story, I still get the chills. My mom's friend lived in an apartment complex in Seoul. She was a stay-at-home mother with a young daughter and her husband worked during the days. One day she was coming home from running errands with her daughter and she got into the elevator in her building. When she got on, she noticed there was a man wearing a cap and a yellow raincoat and he kept his head low so she couldn't really see his face. Immediately she felt very uneasy. and she made her daughter stand to her side, farther away from the man. What made her feel even more uncomfortable was that when she pressed the button for her floor, there was no other lit number. And on top of that, she noticed that he was carrying something wrapped inside a newspaper close to his side. Things started to click in my mom's friend, and she started to panic and decided to take out her cell phone and pretend she was calling home to her husband, who was obviously not at home and at work. She started saying things like, "Oh, I'm on the elevator and I'm about to get off. Can you get the door for me?" Making it seem like her husband was waiting at her. When the elevator did reach her floor, I think she lived on the 12th floor or something. She quickly got off and grabbed her daughter and started to walk as fast as she could to her apartment. She noticed that the man also got off on her floor and was following her slowly down the hallway. When my mom's friend got to the door, she started to bang on it and shout, "Hey, husband, I'm home. Please open the door," and kind of pretended like he was coming to answer the door. Upon seeing this, the man in the yellow raincoat started to walk away back towards the elevator. When he seemed to be far enough away, my mom's friend quickly picked up her daughter and slid open her door's passcode thing, which is how usually people get in their homes in Korea, and she started to frantically punch in her key code. But the problem was that the buttons would make sounds, so the man knew that no one was going to answer the door, and he turned around and he started running back towards her. My mom's friend at this point was practically screaming, and when she finally got her door open, the first thing she did was throw her daughter in through the door. When she got in herself, she saw that the man was pretty much inches from the door, but she managed to shut it and lock it before he could wedge his hand or weapon into the door. Afterwards, looking through the peephole, she saw that the man was walking away towards the elevator. Several months later, my mom's friend was watching the news and there was coverage on the capture of a serial killer named Yoo Young-chul, who used to kill a lot of prostitutes. She told my mom that she could never forget the dread she felt when she saw the too familiar yellow raincoat and the hat he was wearing when she was apprehended. True highway scary story. I was driving from Denver, Colorado to Albuquerque, New Mexico by myself to visit my father. I enjoyed driving at night since it wasn't as hot and there were fewer police and less traffic. I was also younger at this time, around 19, so I wasn't armed with a handgun. When I entered Pueblo, Colorado, I decided to stop and get some Sonic. I pulled into the Sonic on S. Santa Fe Road and parked across from the drive-thru in one of the older spots, facing away from the building. After ordering, I rolled my window back up. I normally wouldn't do that since I love the smell of fresh night air, but for some reason I did this time. As I sat there waiting for my food and looking at my phone, I heard a very slight tapping on my driver's side window. Startled, I looked up and saw a normal looking woman standing right beside the glass. She looked pretty ordinary, but I felt a chilling sense that something was off. She motioned for me to roll the window down, but I refused and yelled through the glass asking her what she wanted. She shouted that the car had broken down and she pointed to a car stopped in the middle of the street. She asked if I could help her push it off the road into the adjacent parking. I looked around and the eerie thing was that no one else was anywhere near. Normally I'm pretty helpful as I was raised to pull over and offer a hand whenever I could. However, as I thought about it, a cold feeling ran down my spine and I sensed it wasn't safe. I politely refused, but she kept insisting and wouldn't take my suggestion to ask the Sonic employees. Then she reached her hand into her pocket and used her other hand to try and open my door. Thankfully, my car was locked, which was pure coincidence. My uneasiness intensified and I started shouting at her to get away from my vehicle. She gave me a dark stare for a moment and then suddenly ran back to the car she claimed was broken down. Immediately after, I saw three large men run out of a dark alley near the parking lot and jump into the same broken down car. They started without any issue and then sped off. Shaken, I said a prayer and called my father to tell him what had happened. My mom used to clean houses. She quit after this. In the mid-80s, my mom was a cleaner in Australia. She would do clean houses in suburban areas and would sometimes do houses in rural/wine regions. She would leave business cards at the local shops and get most of her business this way, and also through some referrals and word of mouth. One day she got a call from a lady who sounded like she was around 60, asking my mom to clean her old farmhouse. She made a lot of odd demands, and my mom would usually meet clients before taking on a new business. In this case, the lady did not want to meet my mom, and said she would leave the keys under the front doormat. My mom agreed mainly because the lady was quite obviously wealthy and was offering to pay a lot of money, which is more than she would reasonably expect. My mom went to the house on a Monday morning and said she already felt unnerved by the long driveway. The house was essentially in the middle of a very large, very empty property. She found the keys and started cleaning. About an hour into the clean, she heard the back door shut. My mom was told that no one would be at the house, so she immediately felt unsafe. She stood frozen in the kitchen for what felt like 3 to 4 minutes, although she said it could have been much longer. There was also no other cars on the property. She wanted to leave immediately after this, but she had 2 more rooms left to do, which were both bedrooms. She said as time passed and she heard nothing else, she decided perhaps it was nothing, or perhaps something had fallen and it wasn't the door after all. She walked up the hallway and stepped into the bedroom. All over the bed were black and white photos. As my mom got closer, she realized all the photos were of her. Some were taken at our family home, and many others are taken at other houses my mom would clean, some through fendos or over fences. She used the house phone to call the police and immediately drive to the end of the driveway. The lady ended up being investigated and continued to claim that it was a break-in. After some time, the police stopped with their searching, and we ended up moving to a new town 4 months later. Every time my mom tells me the story, I get serious chills, and it's absolutely a true story too. Stranger under the bed. I'm 22 and this incident happened about a year and a half ago. I had just moved into my first apartment and I was in the process of moving in. The door that led into my apartment locks itself automatically when closed, so I was going to the entrance of the apartment complex to get my mail while talking on the phone with my boyfriend. I returned to my apartment and sat on the bed while opening the mail while using the phone. I dropped the phone on the floor and it landed under the bed, so I had to lie on the floor and stretch for it. I saw something that caught my eye. There was someone under my bed. My eyes widened and I choked the urge to scream. The person under my bed was lying completely still with his back towards me and his head to his chest, so I couldn't see his face. He didn't see me, so I was trying to be rational while so many thoughts rushed into my head. I picked up the phone and said, "Sorry, I dropped my phone. I'm just gonna take a shower and call you back." The bathroom is right by my bed, so I hastily walked in, quietly locked the door, turned the shower on, jumped out my window, and called the police. They told me to wait nearby, but to go across to the street and to see if anyone comes out of the door of the apartment complex. This was during the summer and it was still light out, so I placed myself across the street, hiding behind a car while watching my open bathroom window and the entry door. I called my boyfriend and he came to me just before the police. I gave them my keys and they went inside. Only 2 minutes later, the cops came out holding a very thin and tired looking man. His eyes looked crazy, but he didn't try to get away. The police had stood beside me and comforted me while the police searched through my house and told me that the man outside my bathroom door had one of the kitchen knives and he was waiting for me to come out. This man had somehow crept into my entry door while I was getting my mail and hid under my bed. This man was trying to hurt me, and he turned out to be a homeless man who was just placed in a mental hospital. My boyfriend moved in with me the very next day. Alright, that is it for these stories for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed all of these stories. They were pretty scary for me at least. I hope you guys had the same experience. Also, let me know how you like this house. I don't know if you can see the vision yet, but in the back I'm going for kind of like an aquatic tank and like a farm idea, I guess. Kind of like a see-through farm, you know. But there's more to come, obviously. And yeah, if you have any recommendations, of course, let me know in the comments. And thank you so far if you made it so far, if you made it this far in the video. I'll see you guys in the next one.